Guys, what's going on? I was sitting here and I was doing some research and reading up on this latest COVID variant called the Omicron or something like that. Omicron, whatever you want to call it. And I read some articles on it and had some thoughts, and I wanted to share some of these thoughts with you. So I hope that's okay. I want to, first of all, obviously welcome you to the platform. Welcome to drvoicetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. This is a place where I encourage you to think critically and to process information that's presented, whether it's Democratic information, Republican information, or anything in between. I encourage you to process everything. I process everything. I don't allow anybody to divide my brain along political lines. I'm just not that stupid. So anyway, here's what I am finding that's really interesting. So give me a yes or no if you've been following this stuff with this Omicron variant of COVID. Give me a yes in the chat if you've been paying attention. What's up, Kelvin and Terry Cobb and Trap the Don and Vanessa? So I've been following it, right? Because I'm not stupid. You know, I have a family and I want to protect my family. I gave my wife a COVID test 2 days ago because she got a little sick from Thanksgiving food. And so I don't want that stuff in my house. You know, I'm not a denier of anything, but at the same time, I'm not a person who just follows along anything that media tells me either, right? As you guys know, I have no problem challenging things that don't make sense to me. So I did some research on this Omicron thing, and I was reading articles about it. And here's what got me thinking about it today. Because some of you saw me actually talk earlier about some financial stuff. I tend to just do podcasts on whatever is on my brain, and there's a lot on my mind. My mind's always kind of processing things. What got my attention was I saw an article from it was more like a secondary media source, so it wasn't mainstream media. So let's be clear about that. But they said that they talked about one of the doctors that discovered this Omicron variant, and the doctor basically said that nobody died from it that they knew of. Like that she said, yeah, I had patients, and the symptoms were interesting. The symptoms were like, she said they were really, really tired. She said they came in and they were really fatigued. That was it. And I was like, is that all? Like that's it? And and that got my attention, right? So I said, okay, well, let me look into this a little bit more. So I started reading more articles. I read some mainstream, non-mainstream. I shared today on my Instagram. My Instagram's The Real Boyce Watkins. Shout out to everybody on my Instagram that's watching. Some of you, if you want to follow me on the gram, feel free to do that. Just be prepared, though. I'm going to challenge your thinking. I'm going to piss you off at least once a week. If I don't piss you off at least once a week, then you shouldn't be on my page. But here's the thing. So there was this video I saw from this doctor in Houston, and the doctor now she had white girl tears. She's a blonde haired white lady, right? So you know that white they tend to listen to white people a little bit more. And she was very upset because she had taken care of thousands of patients that had the virus, and she ended up being fired from her job. Thousands of patients. I think she had 2,000 patients that had the virus, and she said that none of them died. Like were all of them were fine. I'm pronouncing Omicron incorrectly. Omicron. I don't give a shit. It's whatever. Just don't catch it, okay? How about that, Carl? Thank you for pointing that out, though. I accept that. I just chalk it up to the fact that I just mispronounce stuff sometimes, and I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm gonna make that 100% clear. I'm not pretending to be one, but she had gotten fired because she treated so many people for the virus, and none of them died. And she was using that drug. What was it called? Ivermectin or something like that. Because I've had people mention that to me when we did the All Black National Convention. Which, by the way, I haven't heard anything about any outbreaks at the convention. Almost nobody was wearing masks. We did have masks available again because we want to be, we want to be open and accepting of anybody's perspective, right? So we actually went out of our way and we spent a bunch of money making these masks, these B1 masks that people wore that people had at the convention. So we were like, look, we're not going to let, in the spirit of B1, put this upside down. In the spirit of B1, I said, we're not going to allow something as simple as whether you got the jab or didn't get the jab to keep us from coming together as family. So what I did was we went into the budget and we spent a pretty penny making these B1 masks so that we could say whether you're jabbed or unjabbed, you could still be B1. Whether you're masked or unmasked, you could be B1. And we respected everybody's pronouns when it came to whether they wanted to be masked up, jabbed up, and all that stuff, right? So you had a few people wearing a mask, a lot of people not wearing a mask. Everybody was fine. Right. So Brandon mentions ivermectin is a dewormer. Now I do agree. Now here's what's interesting though. The doctor was basically, she said, look, and I have lots of clinical experience. She'd been with this hospital in Houston for a lot of years. She said none of my patients for COVID were ever admitted to this hospital. They didn't have to get hospitalized. And she was kind of basing things on surveys of what her patients were taking and stuff like that. So anyway, so at the end of the day, it was very interesting to see that. And I really think that what is definitely occurring, no matter what your opinion is on all of this, is that you can't give me a yes or no if you agree with this. Can we at least agree on this point that all information and all ideas are not really being respected? Like that there's a kind of a suppression of perspective where it says if I'm on one side of the fence, I don't want to hear anything from the other side. Like if I believe in the jabs and I believe in that this is going to kill everybody, I don't want to hear any point of view, even from qualified professionals that disagree with me, right? And what's interesting is how people who were super qualified 6 months ago, right, who were considered to be extremely qualified 6 months ago, suddenly become unqualified the minute your opinion does not go along with the existing narrative. That's what I saw with this doctor in Houston. She'd been a doctor for many years and she treated a lot of patients. And again, she said, I treated thousands of COVID patients and none of them have been even admitted to the hospital or something like that. Or maybe she said none of them died. It was something crazy like that, right? It's on my Instagram if you want to watch her video and see it for yourself. So this suppression of information and ideas is interesting. This idea that somebody can be super qualified in February, but completely unqualified in a quack and by July is a little bit weird to me. Like that's a little weird. It reminds me of when I was in graduate school and we would get, because we were also kind of employees of the university at Ohio State, I got really high reviews on every job evaluation. You ever gone through that? Well, I got really high reviews on every job evaluation. And then one day I said something they didn't like. And then suddenly my reviews hit the floor. Anybody ever go through that where you're getting good reviews and you're like the most qualified person on the team, and then you do something that doesn't fit the narrative or something that makes your bosses uncomfortable? Next thing you know, you're not qualified at all, and they're documenting how unqualified you are so they can make an excuse to get rid of your black ass. Anybody ever go through that on the job? It happens all the time on the corporate plantation. And this is what I'm seeing, right? I'm seeing this sort of weird phenomenon where people that were super qualified in 2018 are not qualified at all in 2021 because of the things that they're saying. So one of the things that I noticed also with this Omicron variant scenario was I was looking. Here's what I was looking for, right? I was thinking about the beginning because I told you guys I don't want to be like the internet. The internet has a short attention span. The internet can't remember what happened 3 weeks ago. I try to go, but sometimes I go back. And I remember when this whole pandemic started, the big concern, I don't know about y'all, but my big concern wasn't like getting a virus per se. Like you get viruses all the time, right? Not that I want one, but it happens, right? My big concern was what? It was death, right? Right? How many of you was your primary concern? Like my big concern, like don't get me wrong, maybe long-term effects would be bad as well, but really I was sitting there thinking, man, it's just going to kill us, right? That was my concern. It was death. And in the beginning, they talked about death a lot. They would report every single time a person died, especially if that person was famous. When Trump and the Republicans all had their little gatherings during the height of the pandemic, they were sitting around hoping and waiting for some of them to die. Herman Cain did die. Now, Herman Cain was a 71-year-old cancer survivor who, in my view, had no business being nowhere without a mask. I personally think he should have worn a mask. But they were waiting, like they were hoping. They were like, okay, Chris Christie, he's fat. He's a fat ass old man. He definitely gonna go down. And it would have been on the headlines of every newspaper. And even Chris Christie survived. Chris Christie got it. He went to the hospital and then he got out and he's fine, right? So I noticed that people stopped talking about when that death narrative wasn't really as prominent. People started going in other directions. They started talking about the number of cases and or maybe the number of hospitalizations and things like that. And then big pharma, of course, comes in as the hero to save the day because you're at war, right? Whenever there's a war, there's corporations that make a lot of money whenever there's war. So if the enemy is, the Iraqis or the Afghans, then defense contractors make billions of dollars from the war, right? When the enemy is a virus, billions of dollars are made by Merck and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, who are coming along to fight this war, for our country, right? And so I kind of paid attention to that. And I noticed with this virus, if you read the articles carefully, what you'll notice is they almost never talk about the number of fatalities. I have not yet to find a single article on the Omicron. And if I'm saying it wrong, then then fuck you. I'm kidding. No, actually, I'm not. But the Omicron variant, they haven't talked at all about death. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not saying that I want to catch a virus. I'm not saying that I'm scared to wear a mask. My wife makes me wear my mask everywhere I go, especially because I'm out in public. Just so you know, when I see you and I shake your hand or give you a hug, my wife is cussing me out after I hug you, like, "Boys, why are you doing that? You can't do that." And I'm like, "But I can't help it. It just happened. It just happened, babe. I'm so sorry." So I'm not speaking as a denier. I'm not speaking as somebody who is going to judge what choice you make, but I can say that my big concern is dying, right? Because every year I get offered, the chance to go get a flu shot. And I thought about getting a flu shot one time, and I researched it. And what I found out was that there's all these different strains of the flu, and they're kind of rolling the dice, they're shaking the bones and throwing the dice out. And they're like, okay, we think this is the strain that's going to be the most prevalent for this flu season. So they can't protect you from all the strains. I thought one shot just gave you like complete defense, but it was a little bit more like football. In football, if you set your defense up a certain way, you might be able to stop the run better than you can stop a pass, right? Or you might be defending one side of the field better than you defend the other. You can't defend all sides of the field. You can't stop the run and the pass and everything all at once, a lot of times, right? So the same thing is true with that vaccine or with the flu shot, excuse me. You can't defend against all the types of flu that might come get you. So what I found was that there was about an 18% chance that if you caught the flu, that it would be the strain that you're actually defending against. If it was another strain, then you're going to get the flu like everybody else. So I said, well, I only have an 18-20% chance of hitting the right strain, well, then fuck it. I'll just take my chances. I'll just, do things that I think are more holistic, like exercising, getting plenty of sleep. My wife has sea moss upstairs. We have vitamins upstairs, right? There's lots of things that a person can do that will prevent illnesses and stuff like that, right? And what's the interesting is that big pharma isn't going to really talk about that, right? Big pharma is there to engage in a type of I don't want to say exploitation, but they certainly take advantage of fear, right? Fear. If I'm a hypochondriac and I'm scared to death of any virus or catching anything, I'm not making fun of you in this category, but y'all know what it is. Then I can just say, look, take this shot because this is going to give you extra protection, right? And so what we have to accept, in my view, is that there are some people who are a little more scared than others, right? There's some people who are very, very much afraid of germs. Someone's called a germaphobe. I'm not really a germaphobe. I'm a guy who kind of says, I'll just keep my immune system strong, wash my hands, do basic things, and I'll probably be okay. Right. Whereas I know some people, if they know that you're sick, they won't go near you. If they touch your hand, they got to wash it immediately. They keep hand sanitizer everywhere. I wasn't one of those people. I have hand sanitizer now, but I didn't have it before all this happened. So let me read some of this article to you. And by the way, if you could please hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe button. And you can follow me on Instagram at The Real Boyce Watkins. So this article is in Vox. And I read this article after I heard that report from the South African doctor about the Omicron variant, where the doctor basically said that none of her patients, the doctor that discovered the variant, the doctor said, none of my patients died. They just were really tired. And I was like, that's not, to me, something that scares me. I'm not afraid of waking up one day and being really sleepy. I'll just go back to sleep. Right. And so let me read some of this to you. It says a new COVID-19 variant, now named the Omicron variant, was detected in South Africa on Wednesday, prompting renewed concern about the pandemic. A major stock market drop and the imposition of new travel restrictions to stop the spread. That's another reason why I've been following the variant very closely, is because a lot of you who are investors, how many of you are investors? How many of you are invested in the stock market? This information is important for understanding what your stock market plays and your stock option plays are going to be for this week. If this turns out to be much ado about nothing, then you're going to make money if you went ahead and bought the dip. But if it turns out to be something more serious that can actually shut down business and shut down international travel and trade, in a significant way, then that means the dip could continue. So understanding this information, the other reason why I'm curious about this is because I'm sitting here trying to figure out, is this something that's significant, or is this just the media overreacting? Because I know how the media makes its money. The media makes its money by scaring you. They release new variants the way a rapper releases a new album every year. It's like every week they're like, what's the new variant we can put on the headlines that's going to make us millions of dollars from ad revenue, from all the eyeballs that we can get on our website, all the eyeballs we can get on TV. CNN and MSNBC in particular, and Fox too, actually, have become fear porn. That's what they are. CNN and MSNBC, makes everybody think they're going to die, and they keep you on edge, keep you scared to death. During the election, they kept you so scared that if Trump gets reelected, then we're all going to die, and he's going to do these terrible things and kill every black person that he sees, and the Proud Boys are going to come to your house and beat your daughter and murder your son. And right, that's the narrative they fed. Whereas Fox News, they scare old white people. That's pretty much what they do. They show the very worst of everything. They show, like, if there's a protest, they'll show the rioters, and the looters are going to come to your house. So Kyle Rittenhouse is your hero because he's protecting you from these terrible looters that are going to come kill you, and all this other stuff, right? So fear, it kind of drives the media. So my question always is, okay, when are they engaged in fear porn? And when are they actually presenting information that we might want to pay attention to? So basically what they said here in Vox is that they said, though the variant's existence was first reported by South Africa, it has also been found in Belgium, Botswana, Germany, Hong Kong, Israel, Italy, and the United Kingdom. So it's going to be found in other countries. It's probably in damn near every country out there by now. The fact that the variants in all those different countries sounds like an interesting headline, but it doesn't scare me, right? That doesn't scare me because there's now if you tell me people are dying in all these countries, then I get that. But if it's just there, well, shit, so is herpes. So is, there's all kinds of viruses that are in every country, but that doesn't mean everybody's going to die. So it says, while it will take scientists some weeks to understand the Omicron variant, including how quickly it can spread and what the illness that results from infection looks like, the World Health Organization has already labeled Omicron a variant of concern, meaning it could be more transmissible, more virulent, or more able to evade the protection granted by the vaccines than the original strain of COVID-19. So variant of concern is not the same as something that is legitimately feared. Concern means let's investigate further, right? Concern means it could be more transmissible. That doesn't mean it is more transmissible. And also more transmissibility does not mean that it has a higher death rate, right? So that's the thing. And Ralph, you said the doctor says it's so mild it can be treated at home. Yeah, that was what got my attention. Is that the doctor allegedly who found this variant basically was like, it's different, but it's not deadly, right? It's different, but they were just tired, and we sent them home, and now they're better. So that doesn't bother me. So let me keep going. They said, what do we know about the new variant? They said early evidence suggests that the Omicron variant is highly contagious, possibly more so than the Delta variant. With more than 30 mutations in the spike protein, the part of the virus that binds to a human cell, Omicron can be both more transmissible and have more mechanisms to evade immunity, already confirmed by vaccines or prior infection. So far, cases of the variant have appeared primarily in young people. Now listen to this. So far, cases of the variant have appeared primarily in young people, leaving them exhausted with body aches and soreness, says Dr. Angelique Kotese, head of the South African Medical Association. Quote, we're not talking about patients that might go straight to a hospital and be admitted, she told the BBC. So the doctor, the head of the African Medical Association, where this variant was found, has basically said that these individuals are exhausted with body aches and soreness. I'm not sitting here trying to tell you that you shouldn't be concerned, but when you get the flu, you're going to have body aches and soreness and exhaustion. right? I'm not saying this is the same as the flu. I'm just saying that I've not read anything yet that tells me that this is any more frightening than the flu. In fact, I was looking up flu numbers for 2018, and in 2018 we had 27,000 flu cases, which if you divide that over flu season's from October to May, right? So what I did was I took all those weeks, I want to say it's about 32 weeks, about 8 month period, 32 weeks, and I divided 27,000 by 32, and I said that, so that's about 1,687 people that died from the flu. Sorry, scratch that. I said 27,000 cases. I scratched that. I meant to say 27,000 deaths. 27,000 deaths. So if you divide those 27,000 deaths by a 32-week period, you get about 1,687 deaths every 2 weeks. Well, I looked up the number of deaths from COVID in the US, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that number wasn't much different from the number of flu deaths that occurred during a given 2 week period during 2018, right? So it doesn't mean that COVID is the flu. I'm not saying that at all. What it does mean is that you have to, I think it's important to differentiate between something that might kill you versus something that might just be another virus, right? Another virus that could infect you. I'm not saying you should want to be infected by anything. I am saying though that this sometimes this fear of death can be highly manipulated, and it's something that I don't think is healthy. I don't think it's healthy for you every day to wake up thinking that you might die, right? And I agree with our Lamas who says stop watching TV. I think stopping, turning off the TV, and taking care of yourself is probably your best defense. What does taking care of yourself mean? That means, number one, don't be stupid. Don't get caught up in anti this and anti that, or whatever, right? Don't, like, seriously, don't get caught up in doing things because everybody else is doing it. Also, there are basic things that can help your immune system that I've been doing that I think work really well. But it also helps your mental health as well, like exercise, eating the right foods. A lot of the food we eat is absolute junk. A lot of the food we eat literally is the driving force behind all the pre-existing conditions, right? You talk about the diabetes and the strokes and the heart and heart disease and all that being pre-existing conditions for a virus to come in and take you out. Well, the viruses kill the weak. Viruses like this, it sounds like a virus that kills the weak, which means it kills, it'll kill a lot of the elderly, unfortunately, which, that's why we want to protect them, right? But it also kills those who aren't taking care of themselves, right? So Big Pharma isn't really going to tell you this because I don't think they figured out how to monetize health. I think they've only figured out how to monetize the management of illness, not the cure. They can't monetize the cure and they can't monetize the prevention, but they can monetize the management of the problem. And that's what creates that economic ecosystem that's made them so much money. So be careful. Don't, Big Pharma is not your friend. I'm convinced of that. So let me keep reading. Hit the thumbs up button, hit the thumbs up, share, subscribe button. And by the way, feel free to go to boycewatkins.com if you want to take a look at some of the stuff we have going on for Black Friday in the Black Business School and stuff like that. So if you're interested in your economic health, you just go to the website. There's some really good stuff up there. Also, if you're on Instagram, there's a link in the bio. All right. So let's see. So far, cases of the variant have appeared primarily in young people. I already said that. Relative to its pandemic peak, cases in South Africa are relatively low right now. So it looks like South Africa is actually getting better. However, the country has seen a substantial spike in new infections. Remember, new infections. I don't look for infections. I look for deaths. I want to see what the death toll is. Infections don't scare me. It's the death that scares me the most, or not even scares me, but I pay attention to that the most. On Friday, South Africa reported 2,828 COVID-19 cases, with as many as 90% of those cases caused by the Omicron variant. Reinfection is also a concern of the new variant. But at this early stage, it's difficult to know how likely reinfection or breakthrough infections actually are. So again, they're saying this is an early stage. They don't really know. They see something that concerns them. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to kill you. Quote, the mutation profile gives us concern. Pay attention to how many times the word concern comes up and the word might, right? Or possibly, words like that, not definitive terminology, just words that kind of say, we're looking over here because this concerns us. The mutation profile gives us concern, but now we need to do the work to understand the significance of this variant. So that means we need to do the work to understand. That means we don't understand yet. So again, not understanding something means that you don't know what it is, right? And what's interesting to me is that the stock market, this is a word for the investors out here, the stock market didn't possibly drop by 900 points this week in response to this variant. It definitely dropped. It definitely dropped. And that reminds me of what they talk about in psychology, a self-fulfilling prophecy, where you take something that might happen and you create definitive response to something that may or may not even occur, right? Or you have a false belief and the belief becomes real because you have very real responses to something that it could be a figment of your imagination, right? Like, I think you're trying to kill me, so I pull out a gun and I shoot you, right? In response. Well, now it's gotten real. Now what was not real has become real. My perception of you as a threat may or may not have been real. You could have been a threat. You may not have been a threat. You were a possible threat. I was concerned that you were a threat, but my reaction, well, that's 100% real. I really shot you. You understand? So what's interesting with the stock market is that I wonder if this decline in the market, this massive drop, was an overreaction. It was a definitive overreaction to something that may or may not be a legitimate concern. If that's the case, then this is your chance to make some money, okay? Because a lot of really good quality companies dropped in price because of the definitive concern over something that may or may not actually be a real threat, right? So, and as this unfolds, and as we, the reports come back, and people say, look, nothing to see here. Yeah, it's a variant. We got to watch out for it, but keep wearing your mask and get your jabs, and everything's gonna be okay. Well, then shit, everything will go back to normal in no time. And in that time, you've made money because you went and bought that stock for 80 that was supposed to be selling at 90. You follow what I'm saying? And the people who can figure this out first are the ones who end up making money. So my goal as an investor is, how do I figure this out first? And I'm telling you, just within family, between me and you, because we're all family here, is I think this is much ado about nothing. I think this is going to probably like not be a big deal. Now, the question then at that point becomes, is the media going to actually report this accurately? Like, when we realize that it's not going to kill everybody, is the media going to be honest, or are they going to continuously engage in headline-based fear mongering, which again creates another problem because a lot of investing occurs due to psychological factors. Like, it's not so much about what's really going on, it's how do people feel about what's going on, right? That's why they measure things like consumer confidence. The consumer confidence index, which studies or pays attention to how the economy is going based on how people feel, consumer confidence instantly dropped because of what was going on with this variant, right? So it wasn't like consumers had a reason to be less confident. They just chose to be less confident, right? Like, just like in life, like sometimes you don't need any sort of like real reason to become less confident. You just are, right? Right? Maybe your woman, your boyfriend tells you you're ugly. You're not any prettier or any uglier than you were before he made that comment. But now, because he said it and you value his opinion, even though he's an asshole, you still think that you're less attractive because somebody you value just told you something negative about yourself, right? So that's what's going to be interesting in terms of how the market reacts. I'm going to read more here. They said whether the efficacy of treatments such as monoclonal antibodies and new pill treatments from Pfizer and Merck, so they're getting lots of defenses against this virus, which is a good thing, will be the same against the Omicron variant is also unclear, as is the new variant's virulence, or how sick it will make those infected. Dr. Leanna Wynn. So they don't know how transmissible it is. They also don't know how sick it will make people. And also what I've noticed is that in addition to jabs, this is why I don't think the jab thing, I think if you're holding out and not getting the jab, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the near future, all that kind of goes away. But I know, it kind of sucks, right? Because my daughter and my wife went to see Frozen down in Chicago, and I chose not to go. I hung out with my dad this weekend, and who also didn't get the jab, and even though his immune system is somewhat compromised. And it's interesting because I was like, damn, like I couldn't have even gone to see Frozen with you because they were checking people's papers at the door, right? They were checking everybody's status on whether they got the jab. They weren't checking to see if you were free of COVID. They were just checking to see if you got their shot or not. And I can't wait. I'm hoping that day goes away because I think it's unfair. I think it's wrong. And I'm not, and personally, I'm experiencing that myself because I chose not to do it. But I have people in my family who chose to get it, and I don't judge them. I don't think it's, and they don't judge. I don't let them judge me. right? So anyway, let me keep reading. So this is Dr. Leanna Wen, who's on CNN. She listed 3 key questions about the variant. Now pay attention. I want you to pay attention to these 3 questions, and now I want you to pay attention to the question that's not being asked. She said 3 key questions. 1, is it more contagious? 2, is it more virulent? 3, is there immune escape? So the 3 questions: is it more contagious? Is it more virulent? Is there immune escape? Does anybody notice what question they didn't ask? That which is the only question I'm asking. What's the question that they didn't ask? Well, the question they didn't ask is, how likely is this shit to kill you? Like, what's your chance? What's your probability of death once you get this thing? They didn't ask that question, right? Because they don't ask that question because the virus has gone from being possible death to just being a huge inconvenience. I'm not saying that it's not a big deal. I'm not saying that it's not out there. I'm not saying that you want to go get it, but it's an inconvenience, right? I catch it, I get real sick, I might go to the hospital. There's a small chance that I could die, but most people don't die. Most of the people recover. 99, I think it was, I did the math. In the US, 99.8% of the people in this country will survive this pandemic. So your odds of dying, which it do exist, is about 1 in 500. There's 0.0023 of the country, or 0.23% of the country is going to die from the virus. RIP goes out to those people who were affected in that way, but everybody on this podcast is going to survive, right? So ultimately, that's what's interesting to me, is that they've gone from, it reminds me when I was watching the Ohio State Michigan football game, or better yet, here's a better one. I was watching Louisville versus Kentucky. I'm a Louisville fan. And at the beginning of the game, you're like, man, can we win? Are we going to have a chance to beat Kentucky? And because they have a great team this year. And then Kentucky scores a touchdown. And you're like, it's okay, we're still in it. You know that feeling where you kind of go downhill slowly, like during the game, like you slowly lose hope. And then they scored another touchdown. And then you're like, okay, it's all right, we can still get in there. We just have to play really hard. Then they score another touchdown. And then you go from saying, like, I wonder if we can win, to saying, like, I wonder if this can just be respectable. Are we ever going to score? Right? And then by the end of the game, you're just like, man, come on. Can y'all just please get the ball in the end zone? Like, just give me a couple of touchdowns just so I can hold on to my dignity, because winning is now gone. Like, winning is off the table now. Now we're just aiming for the second and third level prize, right? We're aiming for the booby prize now. We know we can't get the trophy no more. So to me, the conversation, again, pay attention now. The conversation about these viruses and everything else, and jabs and all that, it started with death. Like, are you going to survive? And everybody stayed home because they were scared of dying, right? But then it changed suddenly to, will you get infected, or will you get hospitalized? But then it's like, oh, well, but we found a few people where there are these long-term effects. If you get it, your lungs are affected long-term, and stuff like that, right? And it's almost like they were kind of doing what I was doing in the Louisville football game. You hold on to whatever you can, right? You're holding on to it because you know that what you started off with isn't available to you anymore. So now you just hold on to whatever you can. And so for media and big pharma, death are the ultimate economic prize. The fear of death are ultimate economic prizes, because at that point they can mandate that you do whatever they say. And they basically can say, give me all your money and I will save your life. There's no human being I know who wouldn't give up everything that they have in order to save their life. But there are people who aren't willing to give up money to save them from an inconvenience. And also there are people that have different levels of what they call risk tolerance, right? So there are some people who say, look, I don't want to catch a virus no matter what. I hate germs. Germs are bad. I'll spend any amount of money to make sure that I'm always germ free. But then you have some people who say, I don't care about that, right? You go down south, you get some hillbilly in Alabama who's like, look, I walk I walk barefoot on the floor of a gas station on the side of the road, knowing that somebody probably peed on the floor. I don't care, right? Like, which is crazy. It's kind of gross, but my point is to say that people have different risk tolerances. And what I noticed is that when I would go to parts like of the North or the West, when I was traveling, people were very concerned about like doing everything you can to prevent yourself from getting a virus. But then when I went down south, people were just like, look, it's gonna be life as usual. Some of us ain't gonna make it, but most of us are. 99.8% of us are, and we're going to continue to live, right? We're going to continue to do what we're going to do. And I went to Florida in the height of the pandemic, and I was a little bit concerned, a little bit nervous, because when I went down to Florida in the middle of the pandemic, people pretty much acted like there was nothing going on. Like it was real, it was almost like going to a whole nother planet. Right in the middle of the pandemic, height of the pandemic, I took my family to Florida because I said we got to get away from Chicago and Illinois because Illinois is just driving us crazy. So we went down south, and the weather was beautiful. People were shaking hands. There was this old redneck guy who was looking at me funny because he saw a black guy in this area that we were in. It was like kind of a rich people's area, and he was kind of like he's pretending to make conversation with me, but I could tell he was probably profiling me to see what I was all about. Then when we talked for a minute, he realized I wasn't a threat, and so he starts talking to me, right? And he's like, hi, I'm from, I'm like, so where are you from? He's like, oh, I'm from Tallahassee, and we're talking for a minute, right? And he's like, yeah, them Dallas Cowboys, I hope they do have a good season this year, right? And so we're talking, and then when we got done, at the end of the conversation, he reaches out and just shakes my hand like it ain't nothing. And I grabbed his hand, but then I was like, we're not supposed to be shaking hands. Like, this is crazy. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is a pandemic. It didn't even cross his brain. And I'm telling you, a lot of the people down there were kind of thinking the same way. I would go into stores and they would just talk to me, and there was no mask. There was no conversation about any of the pandemic stuff. So it was really like in this country, you have people that literally live in different worlds, like literally in different worlds. And in fact, the reason we had our convention in Florida instead of New York, we were scheduled to be in New York. We were going to go to Medgar Evers College. We cut Medgar Evers College out of out of our plans for this year. We're going to try again next year if New York kind of calms down a little bit. But the reason we canceled Medgar Evers College and went down to Florida instead is because we knew that Florida was not going to cancel our event because of some pandemic scare, right? So ultimately, that's kind of what I saw. And what really is going on is, I would encourage you to think about it like this. And I gotta run in a second, so I'm gonna make this final point. I would try to just respect people's choices, meaning that two people can make two different decisions about this pandemic, and both of them be intelligent, rational people. Some people don't like risk. This is me speaking. Again, I remember I'm not speaking as a regular person when I think about risk, right? I am a risk expert, right? I literally edited a whole textbook by Renee Stoltz at Ohio State University, who's one of the leading risk management experts in the world. I edited the textbook that he put out. That was, standard reading for anybody that wants to understand risk. So the thing about risk that you must understand is people see risk differently. There's some people who have a high, what they call risk tolerance. There's some people who have no toleration for risk. So there's some people who will spend lots of money to get rid of a risk completely. But then there's some people who are willing to take on that risk. They're not scared. They're like, oh, whatever, right? Just like dating. Like, there's some people who go out and date anybody, have a one-night stand, and just live their best life. Then there's some people where you got to spend 6 weeks to get to know them before they'll even go on one date with you or before they'll sleep with you, because they don't have a high risk tolerance. They're extremely careful about taking on risks, right? So when I see the response to the pandemic, I see the people in the South kind of having the same mindset that you might see with somebody who goes in the military, right? If there's a war, you don't want everybody to view war in the same way. Like, my wife thinks war is completely unnecessary. I think war is necessary, but something that you try to avoid. So imagine if there was a war and everybody in the country all said war is terrible. I'm scared of war. I would never go to war. I would never send my children to fight in a war. Well, then you wouldn't have any defense. Eventually, China would just take over the whole country because you wouldn't have any soldiers that will stand up and fight for you, right? So you have to have somebody in there that's willing to take on that risk, that says, I know I might get killed, but they're going to pay me well, and this is important to me, so I'm going to show up on the front lines and I'm going to fight, right? And it doesn't mean that person's stupid, right? Somebody might say, oh, that's stupid. Why would you go fight in a war when you might die? Well, because somebody's got to do it. Right. It's just life. That's how things have happened for the last 100,000 years of human existence or more, right? However long we've been around. Right. So ultimately, with the virus, I see people who just say, it's OK. Like, all right, I don't want to get sick, but I'm not going to be scared of getting sick. I would rather live a quality life and take a chance that something bad might happen than to live a low quality life where I have the perception that nothing bad can ever happen to me no matter what. And I think that respecting people's choices is really the way to go. I really think that's okay to do. I know that people are telling you to pick a side and to attack and vilify people who are different from you. I don't think that that's healthy for anybody. And I think that that limits your ability to process information as a thinking, intelligent human being. Okay. So I got to run. I don't have much else to say about this, but I will say that I'm going to keep an eye on the Omicron thing, or Omicron, whatever the hell it's called. And I believe that this is a buying opportunity for those of you that are invested. I think that this is going to be found to be much ado about nothing. I think stocks are going to rally this week like crazy. I think that before the end of the year, you're going to see a rally in stocks. I think you're also going to see that same rally in Bitcoin. So if you have a little extra cash you want to invest, I'm going to go ahead and make a move because I think that that's the time to make that move. All right. So I'm going to go. And by the way, January 6th, we're starting another Black Wealth Bootcamp. So if you'd like to join this Black Wealth Bootcamp, or if you're a lifelong member and you want to just come back through and do it again, just go to boycewatkins.com, or link is in the bio if you're on Instagram. Click the link at the top. There's a big discount for Black Friday for 24 hours. So feel free to take a look at that. And also the Black Wealth Calendar. If you like the Black Wealth Calendar, you want to take a look at that, that's available on boycewatkins.com as well. All right, guys. Thank you for listening. I know there's a lot to say, and I appreciate you receiving my perspective, even if you disagree. So God bless you. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Peace.